This is Rick Primo here for Airbrushing for Newbies and Primo Customs. We're working on the skull right now. We've been airbrushing it for the last couple of videos, and we're going to go in and do the finishing up projects. Just going in with the charcoal gray and doing some final erase techniques, and use just a little bit of black. Go in there and darken up wherever it really needs to be set off dark. This is basically two colors so far. We've done a medium gray, a light gray, and a medium gray. And we've done erase techniques throughout, and that's pretty much all the highlight areas you see. We've been going in with the eraser here and just kind of pulling out some of the texture and getting those areas that we want to stay at the foremost of the drawing, which is the lightest color. We've just been going in there and erasing and bringing those out. So what I like to do is take my Wicked colors. We're using Wicked colors for this, and just black and white, and the W500 reducer. I like to pre-mix at least a half an hour before. If you can, a day before is great. It allows the reducer to go in and break down the pigments in the binder so it flows a little bit smoother out of the airbrush. The eraser I'm using, we have two different styles. Both of them are from Faber-Castell, and one is the 7056 and one is a 7058. The rougher one is a 758. That's the one I use a lot more. I'm airbrushing with the Badger Renegade Chrome. Great all-around airbrush. Using about anywhere from 25 to 30 psi. And I'm using their ultra-fine needle. So what I did earlier was, when I mixed up my charcoal gray, is I went in and I found an area that's going to be really dark, and I tested my color on that. So what we're going to do is go into the darkest area of our picture, which is going to be just underneath these teeth. And we'll go in there and we'll work that color and see how it's spraying and see how it's working for us. If that color is a little bit too dark or too quick, then we can always add a little bit more white. Now, if it feels like you're pulling back on the trigger and you're not getting the response that you want, then that usually means that your pressure's either too low or your paint's too thick for the pressure you're using. So I'm going to change my viscosity a little bit. Add a little bit more reducer. And just a couple drops of reducer changes it a decent amount. Now I got the special regulator on the front of this airbrush where I can sit there and put my fingers on either side of the needle, pinch them together, and then pull back. And what that does is that bubbles it up in the cup, and it kind of stirs it up, kind of back pressure it. And then spray out just a little bit, kind of full trigger open, spraying it out in a pot if you have it. If not, then a trash can with a whole bunch of newspaper or paper towels or whatever. Now I'm going to come in here and check this again. And now it's starting to come out exactly when I pull the trigger back. So now I have a lot more control on this. So what I'll do is I'll just come in here and cut out the teeth, the bottom edge. Now when you get the paint to flow exactly the way that I like it, it's easy to get it to do a weird kind of blowout spider web look. So what we need to do is just barely pull back on that trigger. You don't want to pull it back real hard. Now this is a almost a black gray. Very, very dark gray. And if you feel like it's a little bit too dark and it's too big of a step, then we can always reduce it or make it a little bit grayer, add a little bit of white, and gray it out just a little bit. Which I might do for inside some of these areas in here so we don't go so dark so quick. And now I'm just going to add a little bit of wicked white. And bring that color up a little bit. Once again, pinching the needle and pull back on the trigger. Now when you're doing this by your artwork, make sure you stand away a little bit. That way you don't have to worry about the little tiny splatter that comes out getting on your artwork. Okay, now we'll come back in here and we'll go over this. I can see it's a little bit lighter. So that'll work. That's why we test it in the darkest area. That way we know we're going to go darker, so if we go a little too dark, we can always go lighter before we go anywhere else on the image. Alright, so I'm going to come in here and just kind of sketch out this jawbone. We can sit here and start pulling out all of the lines in our drawing. And this is a very dark color for our image, so we have to watch how much we use. You don't want to over darken our. You could always go back in and lighten it up, but it's easier just to slowly work into your darkest colors. Now the closer you get to the artwork, the more tight the line's going to be. That's why a lot of people like working with their regulators off or their air caps off. On Badgers you use a special regulator that they have. The airbrushes will not work without the regulators on them. Okay, so with that all cut out, now we can come in here and work on the teeth. We're just going to add a little bit of dark inside the tight areas of the teeth. And then just lightly fog that color to blend that color into your artwork. Just come in here and just add a little bit of this little V area, and then just slowly bring it up, and then blend some of that color into it. Okay, and then if we want to, we can come in with our eraser and bring out some of the detail. Now that we're starting to get a good contrast going, you can really see the eraser work better. So you can see I'm just working it from the bottom up on this teeth. And the lower teeth on the upper teeth will work from the top down. You just go in and just add some shadowing to it. I'm going to define this tooth a little bit more. Bring this down. With the eraser. Now I like hitting it with the eraser pretty quick after I do a section, because it works a lot better while it's still soft. This is not the illustration colors. This is the wicket, so it has a shorter time to work with the eraser. And we do have to remember the light source. We don't want to add a highlight too far over to the right of the image. Otherwise it'll kill our light source. Okay, so you can kind of see how that works. Give you guys kind of a close up. Alright, so now we're going to come in and just shadow this bone a little bit. Remember, this is on the light side of the bone, where the light is actually hitting it. So we can come in and just do a little bit of shadowing to it. Now we can go a little bit darker than we want to, because we can always bring it back out with the eraser. We also don't have to worry too much about detail, because we can always bring that in with the eraser also. So you can see the darkness I have here. Now I can just bring the eraser and just bring out some highlights in this area. Now if you're using the illustration colors, you have a lot longer window to do your eraser techniques. Now you can see right now how it looks like I have the a black outline down here. We don't want that at all. We want to take this black and just blend that in. Otherwise it makes it look too cartoonish. It kind of has that black outline around it. We want to fade that black out so it just looks like the bone is just lifting off the surface. See how that changed the whole look of it? Now if we want to, we can come in here with the eraser and just kind of pull out the corner of that bone. Okay, now as we get over to this other side over here, our artwork's gonna get a lot darker. So we could bring this in and just kind of pull out the features that we want. We want some of the teeth to show. Now we could always take the dark color and kind of candy back over it to darken it up even more. So we have a light source that's coming from this direction right here. So we want to make sure everything on this side is going to be the darkest. So we can darken that up. And we could bring in just a little highlight on these edges as if the light's kind of just catching on that edge and kind of showing up on it. We could add a little bit of detail, little highlights in here. And what I'm going to do is erase this and then kick it back again. You'll understand what I mean in a second. What I'm doing is I'm pulling out that gray, erasing the black. Let's see how we're starting to get a bone in there. We don't want it to be as high as this side because this side the light is actually hitting over here. So right in here we just want it to look like it's there but not be a center point. Not a focal point. So now what I'm going to do is come in just with the black and about 4 or 5 inches away, just kind of fog it over that area, and see how we just kind of push that back a little bit. So now you can see that the bone's there, but it's not in your face. Okay, now all of this, we're just going to come in here and just kind of put a little bit of our material look in here. You know what's nice about going dark on this side is that if we want to, it could be a place for us to clean out our airbrush. What I mean is when you're going in and you're doing a real fine detail and it's not spraying right and you're getting a little bit of tip dry, you can come over here and you can kind of open it up and spray a big area without actually just wasting paint, because this all has to get dark anyways. So let's drop over to the other side of the skull and finish the lower jaw here. You can see how that little eraser technique, just bringing in that little bit of high spot, really brought that tooth out. So we're going to continue going in here with a little bit of detail. Now if you're not real crazy with the airbrush for this, if you want to, you can go in with a watercolor pencil, or you can use some Wicked on a brush and just kind of add these real faint lines in there. Just because you have an airbrush in your hand doesn't mean that you have to use it for everything. Now, the more you can use it for, of course, the better. So I'm going to erase these. I'm going to bring this out. Now remember, the teeth back here are pretty thick. You have to add a little bit of a top to them so they kind of look like a real tooth. No, you don't have to have all the teeth in. You can do missing teeth, cracked teeth. Yeah, make it interesting. It's your skull. So now you can see bringing that in. Now we can come in here and just kind of chisel them out a little more. Find the shape of them. You can see I'm not really outlining all the teeth. I'm just adding a little bit of a shadow area on it. And we can come in and erase for some of the detail. I'm going to come in and just slightly fog a little bit of black over it. And then come out here and start defining this bone. And this is not 100% black. This has a decent amount of white in it also. Compared to our lighter colors that we've been working in, it almost looks black, but it's not. We have this liquid material kind of coming off the skull as if it's pushing through the surface. And we kind of fog some of that color from that. Now if you want to, you can add a little bit of texture in there. Just erase it. With the eraser, I like doing kind of circles and little scratch lines, but kind of keeping it as random patterned as I can so it doesn't look like it's real smooth lines. It looks more like a texture. There's an eraser out there called the Helix, which is a battery powered eraser if you want to use battery powered. Depending on how much erasing you're doing, it could be a nice feature. I'm doing a lot of erase techniques on this, whereas normally you end up going in more with airbrush, lighter colors and coming in and using light colors to highlight. But with the new binders and Wicked, you can go in with the eraser and it works out really good. Okay. So now let's finish up this side of the jaw. We're going to darken this up. You want it to look like it's coming out of the dark bit of that. Now it looks weird being so smooth and having texture on the other side, so we're going to have to come in and just add a little bit of texture in here. Don't have to add much, just enough to where it doesn't look like it was forgotten. And because the light's not hitting this, we're going to have to come back in with the black and just kind of fog that color over it, the charcoal gray. So now it has a texture in it. I want this from about 4 inches away. Just going to barely pull back on the trigger and keep on shadowing it up until it kind of blends away with it. Now if you want to, you could go in and add little darker areas. Kind of add technique, a little texture with the airbrush. Up in here we can see that the tooth and the jawline look about the same height with the highlights on it. So what we're going to have to do is get rid of some of those highlights right by the tooth. So we'll just kind of follow that. Right. Now let's come in here and finish up the texture on this tooth. Add a little highlight here, make it look like that tooth. Add the indentation that they have. Now what you can do for reference photos is go on like dental, look up dental records and see what these teeth really look like for realism. The more photos you have, the better off you will be if you're going for realism. But don't lose sight that it's your skull. You can do whatever you want. And then push down the jaw here. Just kind of shadow it up a little bit. We want it to look like it's actually fading away. We don't want it to compete with the upper part of the jaw. We're just going to fade that out just a little bit. And now we're going to go up and start working on the upper teeth. So this we'll do the detail on the upper section and kind of just bring it down. And then down here we can cut it up. Now we post the videos up on YouTube of this work that we do. We got to thank TJ for editing it all up for us. He's the one that makes it to where we can get it up on YouTube. He also posts it up on YouTube. He's also the founder of Airbrushing for Newbies on Facebook. Created a page for all of us to hang out and talk about our projects and what we're doing there. Be sure you check that out. We can thank iVlog for letting us hang out here on the broadcasting channel. And you can see that I'm going a little bit longer before I start erasing on these teeth. Which we have a decent amount of window before we have to work real hard to erase. Just going to pull out some of that. Now if we hit it real lightly, we're just going to go back to the original gray and white that we had. It's kind of taking off the dark gray. And then if we push real hard, then we can go all the way down to the white of the board that we're using. Now if you're airbrushing on a color, you want to be able to erase down to a white, then the Audubon sealers are great for that. Throw down a coat of Audubon sealer, let it dry for a day or two, and then that'll make it where you can erase down to that sealer. The sealers are pretty good with abrasive resistance, so I'll spit it out if I need. Alright, so now we're going to come in here and just kind of keep darkening this. I'm going to leave a little bit of room in between to make it look like the bone is actually pushed out from the tooth. Notice I'll go back in and level this. Going to get aggressive with the eraser here and kind of bring it to a little bit of highlight in here. Now, since this has been sitting for a week, I have to do it a little bit harder. When I go in and do detail, I use about the same air pressure that I use on all the artwork. I don't really alter the pressure that much. A lot of people do. I usually stay about 25 to 35 psi when I'm working on hard surfaces. If I'm working on t-shirts, then I'll crank the pressure up to 45 to 60. Because I want the paint to really push into the fabric so it stays. Some people work really low air pressure. It's really where you're comfortable at. There's no right and wrong with air pressure. It's what you're comfortable with, how you like mixing up your paint, how thin you like it. It's the viscosity that dictates the pressure in my thought process. Because if you're working with some real thick paints, then you need to crank the pressure up a little higher to get it to come out and flow off the airbrush. I'm going to come in here and we just kind of fogged a little bit of black over this, or charcoal gray. And I'm going to bring in the eraser and just add a little more texture into it. So bring it out. All right. You can see how we kind of brought this part of the skull out. Now this looks really high on the page compared to this down here. By adding the shadow, we kind of made it look like a can, if you want to think of the front teeth as radial like a can. So now we're going to come in here and darken all this up. Once again, I'm using the Badger Chrome with the ultrafine needle. This little detail I can get is almost a hairline. Got a really good taper on the needle. So now I'm going to come in here and just add a little bit of lines. Now remember, this side has to go darker than the other side. But just like the other side, we need to go in and erase it to bring out the highlights and then shadow it back up. Otherwise, if you just shoot this color over it, you'll get the dark look to it, but you'll kind of lose the effect that it has all the detail in it. You can see how when I fog over it, it kind of gets rid of it. And so what we're going to do is just add a little detail and then come back in and shadow back over it. And just kind of fog over it, so we could kind of push that back. Yeah, we still have some of that detail in there. So if I take the needle out of the airbrush, when I put the needle back in, I'll push it forward to where I feel it touches, just very slightly. If you push too hard, then you could actually you'll take the nozzle and actually blow it out just a hair. Now it's not going to affect it too much, but it does change your tip size. If you push it real hard, then it can split. Then now you need a new nozzle. But usually what I'll do is I'll just go in there and push it to where I feel it tap, and then I put a little light split spin on it, and then I tighten it down. And that kind of helps with the seal. And the first time you pull it back, you should feel almost like a little stick on the trigger as it releases. Because it's so clean, everything just fits perfect. I mean, you got to be very careful with the tips of these because everything's so soft and designed to have a slight bit of give in it so it seals. Okay, now once again, this side's going pretty dark, so we're going to darken up this side. And then we're going to come back in and kick in some detail to it. Some little eraser techniques. So the reason why we do these classes live on iVlog is so questions can be asked as we're going. If we do these YouTube videos, people can look at the YouTube videos and they got questions, and then it's, you know, how'd you do that? Wait, go back, how'd you do that? With the live video on iVlog, we can sit here and answer questions as we go. So it's more as a classroom environment, which is awesome. We've been doing it for almost, I want to say 7 years, doing live airbrushing classes. iVlog is new, but prior to that we were on a broadcast called Vlog TV. And just a little bit of highlights out on this, and then we'll push this back. Now remember, the way that I do this is the way that works for me. You may do it completely different. I'm just trying to give everybody a little kind of ideas of this is how I do it, this is what works for me. So make sure you subscribe to the channel here, because we're on here every Saturday. If you subscribe, then you get an email saying that we're getting ready to go live. You could also set it up to where you get a text message. And if you're trying to watch the shows live on Androids or iPhones or anything like that, there's a browser called Photon that you can download, and that will allow you to view the broadcast. On your phones. Okay, so now we're going to push this back just a little bit, get that light to look like it's really coming from this side. This side's going to be a little bit darker. And just by looking at the nostril, you can see how much darker we've gone. We've really been able to pull out some detail into this. Now remember, you don't want to go too dark. A lot of people, the first mistake they make is they grab that black and they just want to, you know, black gets flowing and they just start carving it out. And they get it so dark that you lose that realism look to it. Now once again, it's the skull coming through material or whatever the look is, so realism isn't that important. But it is nice to sit there and be able to grab some detail. So now I'm going to come in here and once again add some eraser lines. You can see how much that pulls it off. We don't want it to be this pronounced, but we do want texture in there, otherwise it looks like it's forgotten. Now you can see if I just did a straight line, how unnatural that would look, right? So what I do is I come in and I'll do a little kind of circles and kind of pull different features out of that. So the look of it is kind of just bounced all over the place. And then we just come in and we knock it down. push it back, I guess you would say. Alright, let's get back up into this nostril. Let's bring out some detail in that. I'm going to come in here and just really darken this side up because we want this side to look like it's a dark shadow. Now this is going to lighten up as it gets closer to the side because the bone actually comes up. And there's not just a whole bone. And now what I'm doing is I'm going further back with the airbrush, pulling back, and just kind of fogging it on. And before we get too dark, let's go ahead and pull some highlights out of this. See here, I erase that out. And then we'll just fog it a little more. Now the other side is going to be real dark up against this bone. And lighten up to where we get to that bone. And bring out some features in the center part. And this piece kicks out, so this has to be one of the brightest areas. Once again, it's your skull, so you can have fun with it, however you want. And shadow here, like this side. Right. Then we're going to add some shadowing around here. Gotta bring this down. And then we'll bring in a little bit of highlights here. Alright, so we're going to move on up to the eye sockets. You can see the depth that we're getting now by just coming in with that darker color. Let's go ahead and chisel in this eye socket. And remember on this side, just like the nose, that this side gets the darker and then it fades out distraction as it gets to the right. This is where the darkest and deepest area, with the light not hitting it. So now in here we gotta start adding that texture and allowing the darkness to kind of fade away. Don't want it to look like it's pushed back, so you have to go in dark. But you can see the way I'm allowing some of that texture in there to kind of shine through. Once again, I'll come in with the eraser. There. And we're just going to here pull out some of these highlights in this area. Now next week we're going to be working on fire. So all you guys that love to paint fire, we're going to do the realistic style fire. We're going to be using all water-based paints. Be sure to check out that class. So bringing up some of the detail in the nose area. We'll come back in with the charcoal and kind of define that a little bit, soften it up a little bit. Alright, so we've got 5 minutes left on this class. So as long as we get one area done, then you guys can do the same on the other side. So now we're gonna continue working on this side. Get some of this detail in here. Now your homework is to do the skull rendering and post it up on Airbrushing for Newbies Facebook page. What that does is it's not really for bragging rights. It will be if you enjoy what you're doing. But the main thing is to find out where I need to teach and what subjects, and I can understand where I'm being confusing on some of the stages. And what it does is it helps me become a better teacher. And on Facebook, when you see something we're doing, don't just put a thumbs up and like it. Throw a little comment in there saying, well, you could have done this, or I like the way you did this, so that way I know to do more of it. Otherwise, it's just a complete guess for me. You guys are getting any of it. Once again, we got a thick Createx Badger, and all my other sponsors for helping me out on these classes. So once again, we're just going to continue shadowing these out, and pulling out the texture a little bit, making it look like the skull is coming out of this piece of material. And if you feel you get a little dark, go in with the eraser, erase it up. If you want to, you can pull out the medium or light gray and go back in with the medium or light gray. If you start to get a color shift, just go over the whole entire image with that color, and that'll shift the whole entire image. And then you can go back in with the charcoal and bring it back out the way you want it. Alright, so this has been with Primo Customs, airbrushing for newbies. Thank you guys for hanging out. Be sure